The Aesthetic Talk Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Jonathan McLean, and we are on the Aesthetic Talk Podcast today with Julie Lorenzo, a nurse practitioner out of South Florida with almost a decade of experience. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
So, Jules, I wanted to bring you on the show today simply because we have worked together in the past. And I actually helped you find your medical director for your practice right now. And I wanted to get your perspective on the process and just overall about being an injector, just to talk to you today.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, it was very helpful having you help me find my medical director.
Okay, nice. So let's start off. How did you find me? Let's start there.
So actually, you helped one of my very dear friends. She started her own practice maybe a year or so before I did, and we've known each other for a decade now. And I was getting ready to open up my own practice and was really struggling finding a medical director that met all the requirements for Florida. And I reached out to her, and she gave me your name and said that actually you had helped her find her medical director. So that was how we connected.
Nice. And South Florida is one of those, well, just Florida in general, is one of those tricky states where you kind of have to have a plastic surgeon or a dermatologist that's board certified. Was it hard, I would say, finding that on your own? Or tell me a little bit, or did you do any due diligence on your own before contacting me? Tell me a little bit about that.
That was very difficult. So I had plenty of physicians that would have been my medical director. However, they didn't meet the legal requirements. And I was very strategic about doing things the right way, not about financial or anything else. I really wanted to have myself set up legally compliant. And I had a few connections. There was one plastic surgeon that I was speaking to who I really was looking forward to working with him, but a lot of doctors choose not to carry malpractice. And so that can become an issue for them having someone as a medical director in regards to insurance. So unfortunately, it didn't work out with him. And everyone else either didn't want to do it or had too many injectors or X, Y, and Z. And so I came down to really having no options.
Yeah, no, I definitely can understand, especially with a time crunch or just overall, you're opening your new practice. You have so many other things you have to think about. Having that medical director just come in or a couple candidates that you can pick from to see who might be the best fit, I'm sure it took a lot off of you.
Definitely.
Awesome. Now, how important is it to have a strong medical director, and what should injectors look for when speaking to, medical directors that they might choose?
Super, super important. So for me, like I said, I really wanted to do everything legally compliant. And I think to really set yourself up long term in this field, you need to have your structures in place. And your medical director is super important for that. So having that plastic surgeon or dermatologist, you really need to find someone that's in alignment with how you practice. They need to review your protocols, your emergency functions, everything that you do. And it's really important so that God forbid you ever do have an emergency, because they do happen. You want to be able to say that you did everything you could and have integrity for, what's going to happen.
No, that's definitely important because I think so many people are just like, hey, I'll worry about it later, or I'll decide, like, okay, I'll just get this medical director or whatever. And then it comes down to a point where you really need to call them and it's like they're nowhere to be found or they can't assist you and things like that. So when you were interviewing, what were like the major points that you wanted to make sure that you covered when picking someone?
So we definitely talked about the procedures that I do. I think also that's where you really need to make sure that you're in alignment. So do you do higher risk injectables? Like for me, I don't do anything in the nose. I don't do anything in the glabella with dermal fillers. So I really choose to take the high risk things off of the table. And you want to make sure that your medical director is in alignment if you do those higher risk things. You want to make sure that they're familiar with all of the things that you offer in your practice so that, God forbid, again, that if there is a complication, they help you and know how to handle it. So you really want to make sure you're in alignment and that you have a relationship and you feel comfortable going to them and talking to them about those things, so that if you really ever do need to reach out for something emergent, you feel comfortable with that relationship.
Gotcha. And I know a lot of newer injectors or injectors that are just starting their practices. Maybe they're only like a couple years in, and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to go on my own and start my own practice." Is it necessarily important for the medical director to show up in the office, or is it okay for them? You can just call on the phone, or things like that.
I think it depends on the individual. Probably also depends on how much experience you have, how comfortable you are. I personally like a face to face. I like to know who I'm working with and have that kind of more collaborative agreement. But I don't think it's necessary that they be there all the time. I just think it's good to have a familiarity with each other.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, I can definitely understand that having that connection or just like that relationship. Hey, I'm going to ask you a question, or even though you're experienced for a long time, I'm sure like rarely get any complication or anything that may hinder the client experience. It's still just important to have someone there that, hey, I can call. Hey, this
Yes.
happened. I know a lot of times some injectors get like vascular occlusions, or some injectors might just, a patient might be upset and like, how do I handle this? How do I made a mistake here, or I did something like that. What are the next steps?
Exactly.
What separates an injector who builds a long-term brand from one that like burns out easily?
I think you really have to go back to the basics and remember your why. So I think in this industry, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Everybody's kind of chasing fame. Maybe not everybody, but there's a lot of that out there. And I think you can get overwhelmed. And I think that's when you really get burnt out. When you're chasing trends, you're just trying to kind of keep up with the Jones in the aesthetic world. And if you really just stay true to your why, build something that you're proud of, and truly take care of your patients, I think that you have a much longer, lengthier career and you won't experience that burnout.
I can definitely understand that because there are so many trends right now. I mean, salmon DNA facial. I see a lot of people. I know HRT is huge and like spreading across the nation now. A lot of people are doing that. PRF. What are some trends right now that you are like, okay, these are actually factually based and I like them. They're not just hot for the moment. And maybe what are some that you're like, I probably wouldn't get into those.
I do like the salmon DNA. I like that post microneedling. So I did hop onto that train. But I usually kind of am more of a watch and wait girl. I don't jump onto it right away. I like to see how it evolves, to see if there's complications, what are the long-term effects. So that was one that I got into. Other than that, I don't get too much into the trends. I kind of like to stick to what's tried and true and produces predictable and safe results for my patients. One that's a very hot button topic right now is the PDGF, which I just choose to completely stay away from. I don't want any of that. So it's something that I just personally don't touch in this arena.
Yeah, no, I can get you. I can definitely understand. What are you seeing? The aesthetic industry has changed so much since I even joined it. I've only started my business, it's been year 6, I believe. So what are your opinion on the industry? Like, where do you see it going? I would love to hear your perspective.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I
Okay.
think it's going to continue to build. I think we are definitely focusing a lot more on the regenerative aspects. People are very interested in, what else can we do that's maybe not as much downtime or not as invasive. Sculptra is big in my practice. So people are definitely looking a little bit less for that instant gratification, and they're understanding a little bit more about doing the biostimulators and having really good skincare, investing in things like maybe radio frequency, and not always seeing that instant filler type of result, but kind of willing to build the collagen banking for the future. And so I think we have a really great future ahead with that.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree. I went to a conference, I want to say, not even like a couple of months ago, and they were saying like filler sales are down maybe like 30%. I don't know the exact
Mhm.
quote me, but do you see that in your practice, or just like overall in the industry that you said people are switching more to other things? Do you see people are like maybe the customers that got a lot of filler are like, no, not at all. No.
I think there's definitely some filler fatigue out there. There has been a lot of stuff you see online too with people talking about the MRI studies and fillers lasting a lot longer than we anticipate. So I think that people are a little more skeptical and they're getting it less frequently, which I think is a good thing. Fillers aren't bad. They definitely have their place. I think they can be done beautifully. It's just about not overdoing it so that we avoid that pillow face.
No, I can definitely understand. You know what? I think like a lot of, with the aesthetic industry, it's like definitely like I feel like celebrity embraced. A lot of the trends that people see that like they go to their injector, go to their provider, whoever they are, and say, "Hey, I want to look like this person, or I want this." They just try. Kim tried this. I want this. But I'm starting to see like more people trend away from the celebrity. Are you seeing that too?
Yes, and I'm so here for it.
Awesome, awesome. Now, if you could go back like a couple years, maybe to day one, and this is for like my newer crowd, what are some things that you might have changed or been more aware of that, hey, if you're newer, try this or do this?
For myself personally, there's really not much that I would change. I think that everything kind of flows how it's supposed to in your life. Going back, if I could give myself advice, my younger self, I would just say to know my worth sooner and to
Mhm.
not worry about the growth and having this like rapid projection, to just really hone in on taking care of your patients, focusing on your craft, not sticking with the trends or anything like that. Know your anatomy, know your assessments, take care of people, continue just leading with your integrity. And I think it all just works out how it's supposed to.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Definitely, and to add to that, I would say definitely when you're speaking to these employers, they might force you, not force, but advise like, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to be real pushy with sales, or I want you to be real pushy with this. And as a provider, whether you work there in 5 years or 3 years, it's your name. So
Yes.
protect your name, protect your brand, because at the end of the day, like you, when you build your own practice, that same brand that you've been using is going to come back around.
Absolutely. And I think don't feel pressured to do something that you're not comfortable with, because at the end of the day, it's your license and your reputation on the line.
For sure, 100%, 100%. Okay, great, great. Now as far as like, I wanted to get into one more question about social media because I know that is huge and a lot of injectors. I'm starting to see a wave where people are realizing how big social media is, and then some people are not realizing how big social media is. How big of an aspect does it play in your career, and what are some maybe like one or two tips that you can give?
It's really big. I'm still working on that. I struggle
Yeah.
with the social media. It's a full-time job in itself. I personally do mine pretty much solely on my own, other than
Wow.
having people come and film content occasionally.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. But I think really what helps me and my patients love is really just staying authentic to yourself. You don't have to, again, follow the trends. You don't have to dance on TikTok to grow a brand. And I think you don't need to worry about the followers so much either. I have a very successful practice. I love my patients. I enjoy who I treat every single day. And that to me is so much more than a follower count. That's not what matters. So I think it's staying humble, don't lead with ego, and just be authentic.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Like when I got into the industry, I thought like you gotta have a lot of followers, you gotta have this big because you see so many people with like 30,000, whatever. But it's really about building your community, right? In
Correct.
your area, being an authority figure in your area, bringing a figure that people can come to and ask for advice or get their questions answered. And that's what really builds your practice, your brand, your whatever you're trying to build on social media to get those people coming through the door or to get those people to really interact with you.
Yeah. And honestly, word of mouth is going to be your biggest referral source. So social media is great. It's an additional bonus, but your true patients that are going to align with you and your brand are going to come from word of mouth.
Like the clubs and things that you join, like your interest.
I mean, like your personal patients that refer their
Yeah,
friends and family, and you just find that those people are going to be in alignment with you.
yeah. No, I get you. I understand, and that's who you want too. And Injector told me a long time ago when I first started this podcast that every client is not your client. You know, And that just really sat with me because I was just like, wait, don't you want a lot of clients? Don't you? And she was like, Jonathan, no, you don't want you want your books to be filled, but you want clients that really respect what you do and the amount of experience that you put into this work. So you have to really filter out who's a good fit for you and who's not.
Absolutely. And you have to protect your peace. Not all money is good money. And at the end of the day, you really want to enjoy what you do and love your patients. And if you get along, you're going to have a wonderful, long career.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and speaking more about the medical director and the aesthetic industry as a whole. Tell everybody where they can find you and if they want to come see you, where they can come see you.
Absolutely. So I am in a small little suite in Parkland, Florida. You can find my website, www.investinyourface.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Jules, Jewels, X Aesthetics.
Awesome. And until next time, bye.
Bye. Thank you.